Let's move on and talk about Darren Moore at Sheffield Wednesday. So he came in at the end of last season and he was tasked, I guess, this season with completely ripping it up and starting again with Sheffield Wednesday. He added, I think was it 17 signings in the summer. It was a threadbare squad when he took over. Wednesday expected to be at the top of the table, Mike, this season, but maybe that expectation is misplaced. Do you think Darren Moore was brought in with maybe a 2-year plan in mind? There's certainly, some dissenting voices right now after 2 wins in 10, but you've got to give him time, surely.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's brutal League One this season. I think everybody thinks it's brutal. We're all aware of how many big clubs are in there, how many big name managers. And yeah, that's precisely how I looked at Sheffield Wednesday. This is a 2-year project. They've come down. It's not like Rotherham and Wickham, who might have, might be less prestigious clubs, but they've come down with managers who've been in charge for years and years and years. They've got everything exactly the way they want it. They were expecting to come down. They've come down with pretty much the same squad that made a good fist of trying to stay in the Championship, with the hunger and the desire to get back there. This is not just trying to cobble together a squad in one summer, then hit the ground running and try to compete with teams like that. I just think it's unreasonable. I understand it's a big club. I understand it's not nice, going to Hillsborough every other week and not being able to put away teams that, that you're not accustomed to playing. But I think realistically, Darren Moore's a process man in terms of the way he tries to go about the job. And it's a shame to hear Darren Moore so soon talking about, I know it's a results game and we're here to get results and stuff. I don't think the focus should be on results this season. I think it should be on performances, which admittedly yesterday against Lincoln, the 1-1 draw wasn't a great performance, but it's a three-game week. They've drawn all 3 games. They should have beaten Wimbledon away last weekend. They were 2-0 up. They came from a goal down at Cambridge in what was atrocious conditions and then were on the front foot towards the end of the game looking to win it. And then they've just run out of legs for the 3rd game. Against the Lincoln team, it should be said, who were in the playoff final last season and have admitted, Michael Appleton's basically turned around and said, look at the landscape in League One this season. We might have got to the playoff final last season. I think we should all take a step back here and just understand where we are in the scheme of things. This should be a season to build and look to go forward in future years, because it's going to be carnage towards the top of the division. Some of the big hitters are going to be trying to get out. And I think it would, as a club, as you think about projects and plans, it much suits Sheffield Wednesday better to understand that next year is going to be a much more likely year to get out of the division than this year, given the initial conditions that Moore's working to.
And it's not a complete done deal yet, though, is it? I mean, I'm going to once again be very self-indulgent here, Mike, and you'll have to forgive me for what I think is about the umpteenth time. But Blackpool were in a far worse position than this in League One last season, and all it takes is a decent run in the second half of the season, and those above start to feel the pressure, don't they? Those above start to creak, and injuries start to mount for other sides, and suddenly you're right up there again in the playoffs. And I know Wednesday probably wouldn't want to go through the playoffs, automatic promotion being understandably the preference, but if that's what it takes to get back to the Championship, that's what it takes, and you can't write this season off yet.
Yeah, it's about chemistry. It's about getting the chemistry right. In the first half of the season, Sheffield Wednesday just need to knuckle down on the training ground from game to game and work on the patterns of play and how they want to play the game, get the ball down, play out from the back. They might change, Moore's on record as saying, you won't pin me down to the local media. I might pay a 3 at the back 1 week, 4 at the back the next week. I want to be unpredictable, because there's lots of teams with lots of different identities, and he's come in straight away and identified, right, we're behind schedule on a lot of these clubs in terms of how long they've been together, how well embedded their philosophies are. We need to shift shape from week to week, but that's difficult in itself. You one game to the next, you're planning for a completely different setup, formation, whether you're going to press, whether you're going to sit, all these different conundrums of to tailor to the opposition you're coming up against. But it's all part of an education. It's all part of a process. And it's only later, when some joy starts to come within the process, that the results will just follow as a matter of course. Whether that's the second half of this season, whether it's the beginning of next season, whether it's midway through next season. Obviously, there's a benchmark that Moore's got to hit, but I don't believe he's below that benchmark now, 11th in League One after a quarter of the season, the first quarter of the season. They're behind so many clubs in so many ways. You look at where Charlton are, you look at, the troubles that Danny Cowley's been having at Portsmouth and even Ipswich. Paul Cooks could come under fierce pressure, and they've been in the job longer and, had, a bit more time to get their head around building what it is they're trying to build, and with certainly in Cook's case, better resources. So, there's a lot of mitigating factors here. And I just think it needs to be understood that, it's a shame for the pressure to be coming on results so soon. I just think that Darren Moore's interview after that Lincoln game yesterday wasn't a pretty interview. I think this is my concern for Moore, is that if you're wanting someone to spin you a narrative to make you feel better that you're not where you want to be yet, Moore's not the man. He's not going to say the right things. It was almost a painful interview to listen to. He's being put on the back foot with every question. He's not a politician. He's not one of these managers that can come out and spin things the way that makes people feel positive. He's very in the moment, and he's down himself because he wants to see his team winning. He wants to see them playing better, but it's all part of a process, So I just think, I thought at the beginning of the season, Wednesday, it was the general mood was going to be patient with him, and it worries me to think that that's not going to be the case, because I don't think anybody benefits. I think you've got to wait until the second half of the season, wait for everything to settle down, and then see what develops.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we did a Darren Moore podcast, which you can go back and listen to on our feed. And I guess the main takeaway from that podcast was that he is the sort of manager who lets his assistants, lets his backroom staff, and indeed some of probably the more senior players have their say, not necessarily on, the final tactics, but certainly they can contribute. Certainly they can all wade in and have their opinions heard. Now, the democratic situation like that is a very nice way of running a club, and can be very effective, and it has proved to be before. But are we seeing a manager who's maybe not ruthless enough in this situation, when in truth this League One season with all those big hitters, as you say, does require maybe a little bit of ruthlessness?
I guess it can look that way. My take on it would be that this is just one long game of trial and error. And if you want buy-in from those players, there's no better buy-in. We talk about joy of the process. There's no more joy comes from being invested, that you've actually, played a part in building that process. You're not just being told what to do. You're actually everybody feels involved and included in what that process is going to be that suits everybody. Now, Moore's strategy, Moore's way of going about things, I believe, he's very in the moment. It's like, he'll try anything once. If it works, you stick with it. If it doesn't, you move on and you try something else. And you're going through this real sort of rapid process of trying different things out and working things out and figuring things out as you go, not getting too far ahead of yourself, not working to a plan, things set in stone beforehand, but being ready. You never know. It's about opportunism is a big thing. Some people of Moore's personality type tend to be seen as lucky sometimes when they strike upon winning formulas and just seem to happen to be in the right place at the right time. And it's not because often it's because they've not got preconceived ideas of the way they want something to be. It's waiting for something to develop, but constantly iterating what it is that you're doing, and never being too rigid in your approach, and just, giving people that ownership of the process can reap big benefits in the future. But you don't get it by, if you start becoming so results focused so quickly and you take the process away from the players, and you don't develop and foster a culture where they figure problems out for themselves, because ultimately it will come down to players being able to figure out problems for themselves on the pitch as well. So, okay, if Darren Moore comes in now with some ruthless blueprint that gets results right here and now, well, what happens in 6 months when then players have to start thinking for themselves? You're asking him to be a different type of manager. And if you're asking him to come in and get your results overnight, it would be nice. He has got experience of League One. He is able to recruit good players, but it's often potential, not finished article type players. So, I just think it's going to be a work in progress this season for Sheffield Wednesday. I never thought it was going to be anything different. I had them pegged as a potential top six, not guaranteed top six, and certainly not guaranteed top two.
Well, last season, and indeed, going back a bit, they cycled through plenty of managers, many who didn't work out. Tony Pulis, Gary Monk, et cetera, all came and left pretty quickly. Is it safe to say that those Wednesday fans who maybe want a change right now are actually potentially causing more problems?
Possibly. I think it's the way of the world, though, and it's the way of a big city club like that. We've seen it at Sunderland in recent years, and it's not satisfying to be down at that level. Everybody understands that, but also as well, sometimes you have to try to take the blinkers off and take a bigger picture view of the division at large. You're looking at some very big clubs working to much more ideal conditions. Now, obviously, and this is the issue as well, is that, let's compare Sheffield Wednesday and Sunderland. Going to Sunderland is not an attractive proposition now as going to Hillsborough for clubs like Oxford and Lincoln and Shrewsbury who've been there this season and all got results at Hillsborough. Most of those clubs have been to the Stadium of Light for starters in the last 2 or 3 years, so it's nothing new there. Your fans are up in the gods. It's up in the northeast if you're a club from further south, so you take bigger following to Yorkshire. You're much closer to the pitch. It's just a real sense of occasion about going to Hillsborough, and for a lot of these clubs. And you've got a team that is only 2 or 3 months in the making, that's having to cope with the weight of expectation from 20,000 fans. It's not like, that Sunderland team, most of that Sunderland team have been used to this for the past 3 years now. And it wasn't easy for them at first either. So I think Wednesday need to, Wednesday fans need to realise that, they've not been dealt the best hand for this season, but that hand gets better next season. If they just weather and they just grit the teeth and come through this with some resilience. This, what is going to be a challenging season. The challenge for Moore is to show glimpses of this process of having the freedom to express themselves at Hillsborough. I think even a game like yesterday, that 1-1 draw with Lincoln, it wasn't a very satisfying experience. Lincoln should have won the game. Lincoln probably dominated on the balance of play. If Wednesday can just string 15, 20-minute patches of slick football together that just, you can see the signs that there's something there that might be developing. Now, this only seems to be coming away from home. They're having these slick little periods in games on the road, but at Hillsborough, there's that little bit more weight of expectation on the players, and they're not cutting loose and enjoying themselves. I think this is what needs to happen, and I think it would help more not to talk so much about results and put his focus on results. Everybody needs to realise this is a process, and it's about trying to enjoy the process and actually play some football. That, the priority this season should be Wednesday fans going to Hillsborough, just looking forward to watching their team play, not necessarily worrying too much about the result. And hopefully come the end of the season, spirits are being lifted, and it's like, next season I think we can have a really good go at it with this team, and then beginning to see what's happening now. I think that's what needs to happen for Wednesday more than anything.
It's interesting you say about the pressure of playing at Hillsborough, because their 2 best results this season have come away at Rotherham, which obviously was the derby and just down the road, and away at Wigan. So seemingly Moore can mastermind a victory when nobody is really expecting Wednesday to get anything, and they face Sunderland at the start of November. So could potentially, do you think, Wednesday be good value maybe in that game, considering what we've seen already?
Yeah, quite possibly. I think it will suit them to be underdogs in matches at this stage in the development, and it suits them. But, as Moore says, he's changing. He's playing 3 to back 1 week for the next. He's trying to be elusive. That's his plan. That's his game plan for this season, is to be elusive. Because if this Wednesday team underdeveloped are a sitting duck that play the same way every week, it could be a really difficult campaign then, because everybody's got your number and you're just trying to play through something. At least if you're elusive, you're learning all these new concepts along the way, and basically at least being a little bit unpredictable. So although it doesn't necessarily lead to immediate consistency, it doesn't lead to immediate, consistency of bad results. It doesn't get you into a rut that you can't get out of, because it's not like you're playing the same way every week. So you don't really know what you're going to get from 1 week to the next, but they can show potential in these games against the better teams in the division when the pressure's less on Wednesday. So, yeah, I think that's what we should probably be expecting from them this season.
So finally then, I think we know what you're going to say here because we've more than alluded to it, but you have them down as potential top 6 at the start of the season. And as we said earlier, there's still very much a chance. It's still a very open division and plenty of teams could flounder towards the top of the table. But realistically, promotion back to the Championship for Wednesday, probably going to come in the 2022, 2023 season.
Yeah, I had it down as a 2-year project. And I say that because Doncaster, first season, it was looking like he was building a 2-year project at Doncaster. And he was very much trying to follow the blueprint of Mark Robins. And he made no secret of that, what Mark Robins did at Coventry. I think Moore's a big admirer of the work that Robins did and could really identify with the way that Coventry played football, the way they were in the first season when they finished sort of just outside the playoffs, and then how they built on it the following season. And then the consistency came and the being able to grind out 1-0 away wins on a title charge. And I think, like I say, talk about chemistries, when it all fits together, and it's not going to come together that way in the first season, but when it all comes together, it can be all conquering. So I think for this season, it's literally, for now, it's about gritting your teeth and just getting through it and just trying to, have a bit of empathy for what's happening and just see it through to the second half of the season. But obviously, you want to be seeing signs beginning to emerge in the second half of the season of a team that can really challenge, either towards the back end of this season, a late playoff charge, or certainly be ready-made next season to have a real good go at automatic. But I think if Sheffield Wednesday were to get involved in the playoffs this season, it might be a year too soon that then puts them back next year because, who knows? But I think judge them more on the second half of this season, not the first half of this season.